Good morning. These two over here, I always think I've got it together. And then the two of them just make me melt with all their tears. And you'd think after 20 years, I don't know, Dr. Wilkins would pull it together, but that just shows how much he cares. And I love it. I'm so thankful that he cares with that big of a heart. Thank you for allowing me to be part of such an exciting morning, to celebrate such a wonderful organization that has obviously made a huge impact on my life and my family's life. I've been a personal recipient of the work of AlloSource for 20 of their 25 years now, but it really took almost 10 or maybe even more years for me to fully appreciate their impact on my life. 20 years ago, my life was forever changed when I was shot at Columbine High School. That day came after a year of many adolescent struggles, which included losing 2 friends to suicide and 2 more to cancer. And I needed a new start, a fresh start, so I transferred to Columbine. And that spring, I was leading Colorado in my equestrian efforts, trying to make it to the World Championships that summer. Life was going really well. And I know several of you heard this story before, so just bear with me as I recap it a little bit. On the day of April 20th, 1999, I made my way to the library for the only time that year, and sat down in a chair and read a magazine when the shooting began. And I went and hid under a little computer desk that only I fit in. And as I hid there, I was just praying for my life, really. And a few minutes later, I looked behind me to see one of the shooters pointing a gun to the boy who was hiding in the spot next to mine. And he was so close, so I turned and plugged my ears, and I knew I was going to be next. He killed the boy behind me, turned the gun on me, and was going for a headshot, but because I was plugging my ears and shrugged my shoulder, it went through my right shoulder, completely shattering the bones, came out the front, through my right hand, which was plugging my ear like this, and straight across my neck. And in slow motion, I saw my arm kind of fly through the air and land in front of me. And I pretended to be dead, hoping that he would move on and be finished with me, and he did. So moments later, we had the chance to escape. Not moments later, I don't know, 7 minutes later, we had the chance to escape. So I ran across many fields, hid behind police cars for 10 to 15 minutes before I ended up at a triage area where a nurse came up to me, an off-duty nurse, and I asked her, are they going to cut my arm off? And she couldn't tell me no. She said, you'll be going straight into surgery. So they spent days talking, trying to figure out what to do. Nobody wanted me to be a 17-year-old amputee. And Dr. Wilkins came in with his really calm presence and met with my family. I think it's a moment none of them will ever forget. And he sat down with them and explained that he thought the best option was to use an allograft, a donated bone, something that none of us had ever heard of before. He assured us it would be the best option for saving my arm and giving me some amount of function, even if it would never be normal. I was never part of this decision making. The surgery was successful, and at the time I really didn't think much of the gift or what it even meant or where it came from. I struggled through many months of physical therapy and learning how to use this newly reconfigured body. And the next summer, because of the gift, I was able to make it to the World Championships on my horse, which felt like the first huge victory in life after something so devastating. And then I would spend many years simply surviving. That's all I can call it. I didn't know how to thrive. I didn't know what to do with all that had happened to me in my life. I didn't know how to reclaim my life from all the horrible things that had happened. But then AlloSource gave me the opportunity in 2005 to go to the Rose Parade. And it was the first weekend that I spent around donor families and other recipients. And it opened my eyes to what donation really looks like. And I got to meet the families who had given and finally experienced the hope they find in giving the gifts. And I think because my healing, where I was at in my healing process, I was finally open to understanding what this gift meant to my life and what it provided to me. So that was a really special weekend for us. And I went home from California really thinking about wanting to do something with this gift. So for a few years after that, I decided I want to find purpose in all this. I'm sick of letting what's happened to me take over my life and control everything that I think and choose and how fearfully I lived. And then I had kids, and that brought a whole lot of purpose. We had 4 kids, and after the 3rd child, Dr. Wilkins invited me to speak at a conference in Keystone about tissue donation. I really didn't want to go. I was not a public speaker, and up to that point, whenever I had done speaking, all I could do was list off all the bad things that had happened to me in life. I had no perspective, no appreciation for any of it, and felt like I had nothing good to offer. And that just felt depressing. So I went to the conference only because of all he had done for me. And I sobbed and stood there like this, talking, and it was so hard. But afterwards, there was just a line of people coming up to talk to me and thanking me for representing the side of the recipient and what that means in the donation world. And that just opened my eyes to how much purpose there is in my survival and the work that they've done and the work that AlloSource does and the organ procurement organizations and everybody involved, whether you're taking a phone call from the families or setting up transport or doing the processing. It's all so important. And it helps people like me, like Dr. Wilkins said, live whole again. And that's what I call myself. I call myself mended and whole, which is something I couldn't say for a long time. While we were at that conference, I don't know why he did this to me, he offered for the 1,000 people to ask me questions. So one of the questions was, did the donation save your life? And I was completely stumped because medically it didn't save my life. And I pondered that question the rest of that summer, and I realized that the answer is yes, because to me, life is holding a child on each side. It makes me cry. It's so special to have 2 arms to wrap around my babies or my husband or the people that I love. How very different my life would look if I didn't have 2 arms, right? So it was in the years of raising young kids and figuring out how I would ever be able to send them to school that I realized I get some control over how I want to let the circumstances in my life affect me moving forward. And I decided to reclaim my life, choosing freedom from fear, thankfulness for the things I can do rather than frustration with the things that I can't do, and choosing to make the most of every minute I get to live mended and whole. And that was totally transforming for my entire life. I was finally able to move forward, but this took 15 years to get to that point. I began to enjoy speaking. I've traveled all over speaking with Dr. Wilkins, which is so special for us to have known him 20 years and become such wonderful friends. I mean, we're family, really. And I spoke so much for AlloSource, and the support they've given me and the encouragement in the story, and they're another family of mine. And they really built me up in who I am and not what happened to me. And they were a part of making me who I am today. So, sorry. I started finally to enjoy sharing my story because of the experiences afterwards, that people really left encouraged and found hope in it. And there were good things rather than focusing all the bad things that had happened. And I was finally thriving and not just surviving, even on the days when thriving was a choice that I had to make. AlloSource has been the steward of a life-changing gift for me. They generously donated the bones used that Dr. Wilkins was able to use to put me back together again. And they've done this for so many more people, millions of stories that we'll never hear about. The gifts they handle with care and respect allow stories like mine to move forward in new ways. I, like so many other recipients, are incredibly blessed to carry the story of another person on with each day that I'm able to live. It's a gift I want to fully appreciate, share with others, and not take for granted. I want to honor the life of my donor and the work of everybody involved in donation by sharing the story of hope and encouragement. But the hope and encouragement might never have come if AlloSource had not become a big part of my story. Tom, Dr. Wilkins, and so many more of my close AlloSource friends have walked the journey with us for 20 years. And life just wouldn't truly look the same without them. They've been part of my healing physically and emotionally. They were part of Patrick's engagement to me. They've been part of our kids' lives, all of them taking part in what our kids are doing, and part of spreading hope to others through donation and research. And a part of this book that just brings it all full circle, I feel like, from 20 years ago. To close, I want to share an example of why the work of AlloSource is so impactful and important. Just this week, Patrick works in donation also, received a message about a tissue donor mother, this is going to be hard for me to read, who wrote a letter Monday to future tissue recipients. This mom lost her son and struggled with secondary loss when she learned that he could only donate tissues and not organs. This is what she says. I woke up this morning and there was a woman on TV who had been shot at Columbine 20 years ago. She was reading a letter to her younger self. In that letter she wrote, "Thanks to the cadaver bone and tissue, doctors were able to rebuild her arm. She is now married and the mother to 4 beautiful kids. It was at that moment that I knew my son's selfless gift was not in vain. I could actually see a person whose life was made whole with another person's donation of bone and tissue." And it completely changed her perspective on the loss of her son. And that is why AlloSource does what they do and why I talk about what I talk about. I cannot tell you how many donor families I've met over the years who pour out gratitude to recipients for sharing the stories, to get to see the other side and the impact that it makes. And it wouldn't be possible without the full circle of work required to make these miracles happen. Today, let's celebrate 25 years of AlloSource making miracles like mine possible, and celebrate, like Dr. Wilkins said, the many, many years to come and more amazing things that they're going to do to impact lives in even greater ways. Thank you.